Hello. I am preparing for the South Bristol Arts Trail, and I'm going to open up my house and my garden studio. And I haven't done it for quite a while, but I am a veteran of several open studios and open houses and arts trails. And in fact, I used to organise the South Bristol Arts Trail. So I've got a little bit of experience. I just thought I'd talk to you about do's and don'ts and what you might like to think about if you're considering opening your house or your studio for an event like this. So first of all, what's an arts trail? Well, we call them arts trails in Bristol. I'm in Bristol, UK, and we have about 10 of them over the city, and they tend to cover about a mile and a half radius, and they're in little areas within the city. So people can walk normally around them, and they're quite short. They're usually a weekend. But I'm also talking here about open studios, open houses, and often they can be much larger things. They could go on for a week or even 2 weeks. People will take over large venues and display their art, and big studio complexes will open up as well. So I guess I'm covering all bases here, but the Bristol ones that I'm talking about are usually a weekend, and they're usually quite small. They tend to be quite community events as well, so they're not necessarily lots of people buying art, although there is some of that going on as well. They're really nice to take part in, actually, especially if you're just starting out with your artwork, because it's a first place to get feedback from people. People are really friendly as well. They are quite different to when they're going into a gallery. They're often a little bit afraid in a gallery, a little bit overawed. In your house, they'll come in, they'll chat, they'll be great company, and often they'll buy things, but they'll certainly give you feedback and talk about your work with you, which is brilliant. That's what you need when you're first starting out. So what do you need to think about if you want to open your house or your studio? Well, first of all, which spaces would you like to open? Most people don't open their whole house or their whole studio. So just be aware, what would you like to open? It could just be one room. There's an arts trail in Bristol called Front Room, and the idea was that people literally just opened their front room. They're all terraced houses. They all had small front rooms at the front of the house. The rest of the house was off limits, but you make a decision about what you'd like to open up. Are those spaces easy to get to? Are there access problems? Are there steps? Have a think about that. It might be that you have to put a disclaimer on to say, or a sign up saying, unfortunately, we haven't got disabled access, or just ask and we can allow access for wheelchairs, etc., that kind of thing. So just have a think about that aspect of things. Is there anything you want to decorate or cover up or move before you open your house up? I discovered this time round that because I hadn't opened my house up for a very long time, including over lockdown, I actually needed to repaint a few little things. Things were looking a bit scruffy, move things around a bit. So that's fine, but if you just need to be aware that, are you willing to do that before the arts trail opens? And of course, one other big thing is, do I have enough work to show? Have I got lots of different types of work, whether that's unframed or smaller pieces, all the way up to your larger signature pieces, perhaps framed things, signature statement pieces. You want a nice big range of work. Lots of people, when they walk around open studios or arts trails, they are looking for, dare I say it, sort of cheaper work. They know that you're probably not having to pay commission. So they're often looking for a slightly lower price. Having said that, that brings me on to pricing. If you are with galleries, you cannot undercut those galleries. So you will have to keep your prices the same as you would in a gallery. That's not to say that there isn't room for negotiation, and often people will approach you and ask. And there are a few ways around this. You can make it known to people that there is room for negotiation. Just come and ask. You can have a studio sale, of course. You could have a whole section where you're saying, this is maybe older work or smaller work or experimental work, and there's going to be a cheaper price. This won't go to galleries. It won't ever be full price. And the other thing that you could do is just not put prices on anything at all. It can still be for sale, but you just ask people to inquire, and then you can give them a price without sort of saying to the world, this is the price and it's slightly less than at the galleries. So a few ways around that, but don't undercut any galleries that you're already with. That's the sort of cardinal rule. And you also need to think about what you will do if people want to buy your work. So a lot of people kind of set these things up not thinking anyone will buy, and then of course they do. And you need to have a form, a way to take payment. So I've got a card machine. They are completely worth their weight in gold. There's SumUp, there's Zettle, there's all sorts now. They do take a percentage, but it does make life so much easier for you and the customer. You can just whip out your card machine when they want to buy, done and dusted. So really good. And also just work out whether you want to take checks or not. Some people will still write a check out. And the other option is cash, of course. Cash is fine. Just make sure you have a float or change if you think you're going to need some, and round your prices up so that you don't need too much small change. Also have a think about whether you'd like to provide refreshments or not. I generally don't, only because it's another thing to think about. So when you're welcoming visitors into your home, you're sending people to various places and you're talking to them and you're talking about your work, actually it can be quite difficult to then go off and make a cup of tea or what have you. So I don't tend to, but you can do, and it's an attraction for some people to come to a house, sit down with a cup of tea or a drink and a biscuit, and have a really good natter. So that's up to you. Have a think about it. And also you might want to think about whether you want to show how you work. So in the past, I have set up a table where I've got all my hand printing things out and I can show people exactly how the technique works. Having said that, I did one year set up a session where I had all my inks and paints out, and I even invited people to come and have a go. That was a big mistake. I won't do that one again. It's just too difficult to police and sort out. It gets very messy. And also the other thing is, if you tend to say demonstrations or workshops, a lot of people assume that means for children, and they bring their children along and they just set them free. They don't supervise them at all, and before you know it, you've got paint everywhere. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but showing how you do things and showing your tools and your equipment, and if you actually in your studio or have a studio to open up, even if it's your spare room, I would say do it, because people love to see how the work is made. And that's one really great aspect of coming to an arts trail or an open studio as opposed to a gallery. You really get an insight into how the artwork's made. So other things to think about are where you're going to put all your pictures. So if you have framed pieces, you'll want to think about where to put them on the walls. Now, ideally, you want to use the same picture hooks as you've got already. So you might want to think about just replacing pictures you already have on your wall with your own work. That's a lot easier than making more holes in your plasterwork and in your walls. So have a think about that. You can also, of course, lean things against shelves, lean things against tables, lay things out on tables or sideboards or what have you. The nice thing about arts trails and open houses is the informality. So people quite like to find things that seem a bit hidden or seem a bit secret. So you can just have things kind of lying around, and people can feel like they've discovered something just for them, which is really nice as well. So promotion, it's really worth promoting yourself and the trail. Don't just rely on the people that are organising it. Don't just rely on the brochure. I'll just show you the brochure that we have at the moment. So this is the South Bristol Arts Trail brochure. Now, usually they have a map. We've got one in the back there. And every venue has a number, and people can go round. They've got a vague idea of what kind of work they're going to get, because everybody has a little picture and a little description, but they're not very big pictures, and of course you can only choose one, so you need to make sure that picture is representative of what you do, but also eye-catching on a sort of inch by inch size. I have had people come to visit me just on the strength of the picture I had in the brochure. So that made me realise that it was an important thing, but also that I picked the right one. So something quite graphic, even if your work isn't that graphic, and mine isn't really, but something that will be quite contrasty, quite graphic, will stick out and show people what you do. But don't just rely on that brochure. So use a mailing list if you have one. Get your promotion stuff out there. Tell them it's happening. Also use lots of social media. If you're on social media, use it. And you can usually also tag in the people that are organising it, and they will also promote whatever you're doing out to their people and vice versa. So it's really useful to do that. Have business cards there. It seems old-fashioned, but actually they do really work. People do go around and they pick them up. And I've often had inquiries weeks, months after an open studio or an arts trail, just on the strength of, yes, that girl, and I've got the business card. And if it's got a nice little picture of yours, it will remind them of what your work was like as well. So definitely have things like that. If you're promoting anything like workshops or anything extra, or exhibitions coming up, also make sure you have that out on display or a sign or something like that. And I would also really recommend having a mailing list sign-up sheet when you're open, because people often get talking, they really like your stuff, they might not be able to buy now, but they really want to support you and hear from you again. So a mailing list is sign up is really worth having. And even if you don't sell anything, it will be worth it just for those people that want to hear from you again. So, So on the day, bunting, decoration, balloons, as much as you can get, put it outside your house. People will be they will have the map, but they'll be kind of wandering around, not quite sure. It's already a little bit of a strange thing for people to just walk straight into a stranger's house. So make it as inviting and as decorated as you can so that they can see it from the end of the street. They know where they're going. This is definitely the place. Yep, in they go. And they get a warm welcome when they come in. So I put up about 2 or 3 different types of bunting, or just whatever I have. I put up balloons, I put up signs. Some arts trails will give you flags or a sign to put up. Use those obviously as much as you can. Just there's no there's not too much decoration on the outside. Just make it really obvious that you're open and you're happy for people to come in and see you. And I would say finally, plan for a day off afterwards, because it's very exhausting talking to people all day, welcoming people into your house, especially after 2 years when I've hardly had anyone in the house. So you will be very tired at the end, and you'll also need a day to collect yourself. You might need time to sort out all the contacts that you've made, deliver work, wrap work, deliver work, all that kind of thing. And also just rest, just have a rest. So that is my very short, brief checklist for arts trails, and just to say that I highly recommend them. They're great. Even if you're quite established already, it's a really good way of getting feedback and showing your local community what you do and that you're here.